while trip. And a year ago, Henry and I were out on the Tamiami Trail bass fishing on a very overcast day, and we're coming in, and there was a guy at the ramp there on the trail putting his boat in. He was by himself. And so we began talking, and he says, "Yo, give me just a minute. I'll put the boat in and tie it off and then pull the truck out." No problem. So in the meantime, we're talking, and he's launching his boat, and I noticed that his license plate said Tennessee. And when he gets so settled and so forth, I said, "You're from Tennessee, all the way down here bass fishing?" He says, "Oh yeah, I'll come down here in the winter months every year since Hurricane Andrew." And I said, "Well, where do you fish? You fish the canals here?" He said, "I fish all the canals. I fish down at Flamingo. I fish the Keys." He says, "I stay with some people in the Redland." And he says, "I just try to fish as much as I can." He has a Stratus bass boat, by the way, and 115 Evinrude engine on it. And so I said, "Well, where in Flamingo do you fish? You fish inside or out?" He said, "No, inside mostly." He loved Whitewater Bay. And I said, "Okay." I said, "What's your favorite place?" He says, "My favorite place is the cane patch."
Huh.
I looked at Henry and I said, "Henry, this is our man." And I just asked him, "Bill," I said, would you mind escorting 4 or 5 boats up to the banana patch just to show us where it is and how to get there?" He said, "I'd love to." So we invited him to the club, and he came one time I don't remember when it was, about this time last year, with a young friend and the friend's young son. But he left and went back up to Tennessee before we were able to really schedule anything for various reasons, weather and whatnot. But I've been in touch with him, and he called me last Monday, a week ago yesterday, and said, I'm passing by the Holy Land right now." I said, "Are you going to camp there?" Because he's a camper. He said, "No, I'll be down in the Redlands tonight." He says, "I just wanted to let you know that I'm in Florida, and I'll call you tomorrow." Well, he did. We talked, and I said, "Bill, when's your first scheduled time to get down to Flamingo?" He says, "I hope to be down there by the end of the week." Guys work during the weekdays, and it's hard for them to get off unless they have special arrangements. And Saturday would be a better day if that's okay with you. He says, That's great. I said, "Well, let me make a few phone calls and I'll call you back and tell you if we're on for Saturday." So I did. I called him, and I called a number of you to let you know that. And he says, "Meet me in the parking lot at the park entrance at 7 o'clock, and we'll drive on down." Well, we did that, but I had phone calls from him before that he was in the parking lot, but nobody was there, and he had gotten something that he needed, and he was going back to his house to get it. He says, "It's only 10 miles away. I'll meet you at the ramp." Well, we all got down to the ramp then, and by the time we get to the ramp, he's there about 8 o'clock. And we put the boats in and start up. On Friday evening, he calls me and he says, "I was out today in Whitewater Bay," and he says, "It was pretty choppy." He and the friend that he went with caught a 28.5-inch snook and a keeper redfish and a bunch of little snapper around Midway. He says, "But I just want to give you warning." He says, "Tomorrow going across Whitewater and coming back, it's going to be choppy." I said, "Look, the guys are all excited about going." And I says, "We're all set." And I said, "We've talked about this long enough. Let's do it." He says, "Okay, I'll be there." And he was. Well, we went across Whitewater Bay, and I'm not exaggerating. Carlos will verify. It was a foot and a half chop with white caps, and
Oh,
Bill
yeah.
Holt runs his boat about 38 miles an hour. I had a hard time keeping up with him, and I think everybody else did. But
I lost them several times.
yeah, but we got up to the Wilderness Waterway area, and of course it got calmer there, and we were able to maneuver around. And we finally got up to where he wanted to go to start fishing, and it was just a little bit east of the cane patch. Carlos, maybe you're more familiar with what it would be, but Bill Hogue starts casting along the shoreline, the mangroves, and he catches a bass almost immediately. He winds up catching 8 or 9 bass, and he caught a redfish. Nobody caught a snook that I know of, Carlos.
No.
And then Pablo put on his lure, and on his second cast, Pablo catches about a 5-pound bass. And he was all excited because that's the biggest bass he'd ever caught. And then he caught 2 or 3 others, and I caught a couple that had to the boat. Carlos was very generous in giving me credit for a catch. But the fish that he took a picture of me, I didn't catch that. That's Carlos's. That's Pablo's fish. But it was a nice fish. Then Frank, Pablo's brother-in-law, was there, and he caught several bass. And I'm talking about at the end of the day, around 1:30, when we get ready to start thinking about going back, I said, Bill, I said, I don't know. I haven't seen the cane patch cheeky or the campground. I want to see that before we leave. He said, don't worry, we're going back by there. So on the way back, we went through the little, Carlos, the little mangrove tunnel to get
Right.
to the dock. And we get there, and he ties up, and then we tie up beside him. There's room at this little dock for about maybe 3 boats, maximum 4. And it's a neat place. There's a porta potty on the end of it, but then there's about a 30-yard walkway up to an area that opens up into a campground. And there was a group there of 4 guys camping from an Orlando camping club. We saw them when we were leaving. We didn't see them there, but they had everything set up, and
Were they in a boat or?
they were there by boat, and they had taken everything obviously with them, because I saw 4 5-gallon cans, probably gasoline. They had a generator, and they had other things. They were set up, to be reasonably comfortable. And then we decided to go. This guy, Bill Hogue, has got COPD, so he gave himself a breathing treatment while we were there at the dock. And Pablo had his GoPro, and he made, I don't know, several clips during the day, and one there at the dock, talking to me and talking to Bill Hogue that he's in the process, he says, of putting together. And we'll give it, I think, to you, Herman, so you can put it on the website if you want. But then we left, and we went out the west side of this pond from the dock, and again go through. I'm talking about really narrow mangrove pathway for about 30 yards or so. I mean, the mangroves were, over the bow of the boat and so forth.
Yeah, you were right, giving high fives to all the mangroves.
Yeah, it was pretty tight, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so then we got out in open waters, and he tells us that branch that he was pointing to goes to the Harney River. The middle branch was the Shark River, and then we took the Little Shark River and ran down ways, but then he got out of that and started on one of his routes that he thought would keep us out of the wind. But we got back to Whitewater Bay area, and oh man, it was a rough ride. I mean, it was doable, but I ran my boat harder that day, all day, Saturday, than I've ever run it, because to get up on plane and stay there is the best course, but it's still bumpy.
Yeah.
And we got back to the ramp and got the boats on the trailer and so forth, and said our goodbyes and parted our ways. But he let me know that, you know, he will be here probably, he said, at least through the middle of May and probably the end of May. And if we want to do more, he said, just give him a call. So he's agreeable to, he's an interesting fellow. He's agreeable to on this stuff, but he's a master on the inside. I don't think you could lose him inside. So that was pretty much the gist of the day. And several people have asked me, well, would you do it again? Yeah, I will. But I don't want to do it with 20-mile-an-hour winds again. If we pick a nice day of no more than 10 miles an hour, it would be a nice ride up there through the wilderness waterway. And I tell you, the water is beautiful, it's clear, and there's just all kinds of potential up there. It is a long ride, but I was back home by say 5:30, had my boat washed up and was back in my garage at 6 o'clock. So it's no different than any other fishing day that I do down at Flamingo. So yeah, I would do it again. And to me, the excursion and just seeing the place, and I want to learn a little more about the difference in the cane patch, which does have banana trees growing all over the place. Between that and the banana patch, which is, I would guess from the way he's talking, no more than a quarter of a mile separate, but
Right.
they are two distinct areas.
Right.
That's my story, Carlos. Verify it or correct me or tell me what you do.
No, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I went with Eddie Messes, and a buddy of his on another boat that had some technical difficulties with a trim tab, so we kind of lagged behind the speed racers in front of us. But we finally made it to them, and right away Eddie really wanted to see the cane patch and the platform there and the campground. So while these guys fished immediately, we kind of took one of those long narrow pathways and we found the cane patch. And that when we got there, the camping group had just gotten there, so they were unloading their things. There was a couple boats on the station already, on the platform. So we didn't get off, but we were able to hang out on the little lake there, which was beautiful. Clear waters. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It's about
The water's fantastic. We see fish from
the edge a little bit, and it's like 2.6, 2.93 foot deep, you know, in that little lake, which means, you know, it's fishable, trolling little wise and so forth, but it's gorgeous. You're right.
Yeah, it is gorgeous. You see fish 20, 30 feet away. It was loaded with gar. When I was there, there must have been hundreds of gar in there. I could see fish, and I was hoping to see like a redfish or a bass, and it was just gar after gar after gar. But it's gorgeous. And then we kind of fished in that area. We didn't catch any bass there, but we caught some gar and a couple Oscars. And then we kind of decided to move west out that same kind of channel or mangrove pathway that Russell spoke about. And we moved towards saltwater, and we started fishing more saltwater. And we got some mangrove snapper and some jacks and catfish and all the usual suspects, but nothing too exciting. And then then we had a rough ride back through Whitewater, no doubt about it. We did kind of hang to the north by the mouth of the rivers almost to kind of stay out and use the islands for protection, for wind protection. So we took a little longer route, hopefully to get out of the wind, but even then it was
Couldn't hide from the wind, man.
It was uncomfortable. We made it. I mean, and I would definitely do it again, no doubt. But it was bumpy.
Henry boy, I see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
How are you guys?
Hey, Henry.
Good.
Henry, Russell told the whole story. You missed it, man. He's gonna
No,
have to tell
I
it
already-
again.
I spoke to Russell.
You got the longer version then.
I saw the big bass he was holding. I called him today,
Cool.
but I couldn't finish. I couldn't finish listening. I was at work. So I'm sorry I didn't call you back, Russell.
No problem, no problem. I know, hey, making money comes first, man.
I was busy, man. Busy today, man.
That's good.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my read on the trip and so forth. And the distance to me is not that big of an issue now. You're talking about the guy had trouble with his trim tabs. I thought my GPS was working well, and it was working and tracking till we get up about halfway out of the Whitewater Bay into the Wilderness Waterway, and all of a sudden it stops making the track and it starts making the wide line that like it has been doing. Wide line points northwest or it points northeast to areas that I don't know, areas I didn't think I wanted to go to. So anyway, it just kept giving, irritating problems, and I get that rectified. So one of my main purposes in wanting to go up there was to get a track on my GPS so I could go there easily, but I still don't have that. But Carlos, I'm counting on you.
I know the way.
You got the track.
I know
You
the way.
dropped the seeds, man. You got the way.
And Herman, those red tracks, we definitely they stop out there.
They stopped.
They all of a sudden stop, and I'm like, whatever. I'm following these guys. I'm going.
Do you have anything written at the end? It's a couple of times he'll say, skinny water or something.
No, just the red light ended right there. But we never ran into very, very shallow water. I mean, nothing that our boats couldn't run in.
Yeah.
Well, I would say most 24-foot boats, 25-foot boats could get through there easily to any place we were.
Yeah,
Now,
to the
going
majority of
through the
places. Yeah.
little mangrove, you probably have to slow down really, because the limbs are pretty close. They're hanging right over the boat. But other than that, the water is plenty deep.
Yeah.
And where we were fishing for the bass, I was looking down, and it's a good 5, maybe 6 feet deep. And along the shoreline, the mangrove lines, it's just the water. On a day that wasn't so windy, you can see to the bottom with no problem.
Water was clear.
I did ask Bill Hogue. I don't know
Yes.
if I'm repeating myself on this, but to me it's important. He caught 8 or 9 bass, and 4 out of the fish that he caught were 4-pound plus.
Wow.
And Pablo caught that bass on the second cast. It was a good 5-pound bass. So I asked Bill, I said, that tells me that there's got to be some big bass up here. If the ratio of 5-pounders are 40% of what you catch. He said, well, there are. He said, the biggest one I've caught is actually 8.5 pounds. So, Henry, boy, you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
8.5 pound bass. And he was telling me a story about a bass that sticks around a stump pretty close to within 100 yards of the 200 yards of the cheeky cane patch cheeky dock that he has hooked several times. He's got 2 or 3 friends that has hooked him several times. They've never actually been able to land it. He says the fish is wise. He knows where to go and break you off. He said, but he's a big boy.
Wow.
He may be tangling up with a Goliath grouper too. I don't know. But
How much longer is Bill going to be in town?
he told me he was going to be here at least till the 15th of May and probably the end of May, and then he's going back up to Tennessee. Interesting fellow. We didn't really, Carlos, have a lot of time to just talk with him and ask him questions, but he's an interesting fellow to talk with. And I hope we get to fish with him at least once more before he goes back up to he's agreeable. He told me, he says, anytime you want to go, give me a call.
Well, Russell, you need to arrange it then so we can try.
Yeah. But I want my damn GPS working right for a change so I can get a track.
You got to talk to Dr. Frank Cassidy and get him involved again. See, he's in town now too.
Well, I'll give him a call.
Give him a
But
call.
Pablo played with it on the way back, and Pablo thinks he can clean it up. One of the problems is the memory on the tracks is full. I tried to delete some of them, but it didn't make any difference. But that obviously affects a lot of other functions on it. Otherwise, it's working half decent. It still shows, the song part still works fine and everything. So I gotta have somebody look at it that knows a little more than I do and clean it up and straighten it out. I've got so many tracks from down at Old Wooden Bridge area and from Flamingo. Henry, you know how many tracks that is.
Heck yeah. Oh yeah.
Ian, you went too. Is that true? You went, you started with them?
Yeah, I followed. I launched with Eddie and Eddie's friend. I'm sorry, don't.
Steve.
And,
Carlos.
yeah, and so we
I
kind of
said
were kind
follow.
of loosely going to follow each other around. I was with my sons. We just picked up a new skiff. It's not a new used skiff, but we have.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We have a 1987 Hogue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's
That's an
actually
awesome boat, man.
yeah, it's actually we're really excited because we bought it from Bob Hogue's daughter, Sarah. So it's
Oh my
really
gosh.
really tricked out. And I had owned a Hogue about 10 years ago and I always wanted to get another one, and this one fell out of the sky for us. So
Wow.
we got a great deal on the boat, and it's really been
That's a
turnkey.
classic.
Yeah, and it's been and actually in that terrible wind that we had on Saturday and all these tough weekends that we've been fishing, the boat's been really great. We run a 70 horsepower Yamaha 4-stroke on it, and it's got a great trolling setup. So, we've done a lot of fishing back there, in the last couple months. And then I spent a lot of time fishing with a friend of mine over the last 15, 20 years back in Flamingo. So I'm kind of reconnecting to it with my sons, which has been great. But we made a run all the way out to some of those points on Ponce and tried to kind of see if we could knock on some doors out there and see if we could get anything going. It didn't really turn out to be a great fishing day. And then we tried to explore some of those Joe River kind of cuts and it really hit out in there. But, I've always heard that Joe River is not really that fishy, and it wasn't really very fishy on Saturday either. Anybody ever have any good hookup?
There was a southwest wind, wasn't there? A due south wind on Saturday?
Yeah, it came pretty south for most of the day. It was pretty tough.
Southeast.
Yeah.
That makes it tough because that cold front came through.
Yeah.
Got back, right?
Yeah, and coming through the Joe River, we were pretty protected. But so that's why we decided, around, I don't know, it was probably about 11:30, 12 that we'd go that way, cut through Oyster Bay, and try some of those spots that we just never fish really to see if there was anything, worth trying for. And it just never turns out. The Joe River has always been sort of, I don't know. Any of you guys ever had any luck out there on
Carlos,
I have.
Right, Carlos?
Yes, I have.
Carlos, tell him.
Yeah.
I got one slot, Snook. That was it.
Yeah.
And what else did we get, Carlos, that day? Like 30 smaller ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, you fished-
I fished there a
Now
few
you're
times.
forcing him to admit it.
But at certain times, and I've been there a couple of them, at that South Joe River Cheeky area, that pond around there, with him on his 16-foot dolphin boat, and he caught 2 or 3 snook, and he caught a couple of reds in that little basin around South Joe Cheeky. I've been back
we
there.
took a look at that sheet.
Huh?
We took a look. There was a bunch of people staked out camping, and we went by it. We thought, well, that looks good on the GPS. And then we got up to it, and we didn't want to, be fishing around all these people's stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You have a trolling motor on your boat?
yeah, we've got one of those Terra Nova. It's one of those little Bluetoothers, and it's been great.
Well,
Yeah.
the last time we fished, Joe, where it got narrow and where it got narrowed down.
Yeah.
And we
Did you
fished
go out
all
on the
those
flat? Did you go out on the flat, or did you just stay in the inside the river itself?
and
we
stayed in
kinda-
the river. Stayed in the river. And then we just fished the points in that narrow area.
Like at the
And
mouths of the little creeks that go run north south.
Yeah, and they were loaded with snook. Loaded. We
And-
got
and
like,
How
every
was the?
cap-
I mean, how are you guys fishing tides right now? And are you mostly fishing on? And I mean, Joe River. I mean, the tide's not really super significant, right? I mean,
Well, the tide in
No.
whitewater is wind driven anyway, almost mainly. They're
yeah.
well, if you try to go around the stronger moon tides, you get a lot more effect. I've figured that out in whitewater. When anytime that I really had a great day, I would look at the moon phases, and it was like 2 days before the full or 2 days on the new moon. And when we were fishing with Carlos, we had an outgoing tide, and it was moving in the Joe. And then so that always, at anytime I usually fish, I look at that the moon phases, and when it's the stronger tides, that's when I usually go. And it works. It works in whitewater. I've seen it when I want high water, clean water, and I fish like 2 days before the full moon when there's high tides, and it does do a good push of water into whitewater.
Yeah, I just looked, they're gonna be a week high tide at 9 AM and a week low tide at 1 PM in whitewater. So it's just gonna go up and sort of hang there for the
Right.
whole time we're gonna be there.
That's what you're having. What's the moon phase?
You keep asking all these questions. I'm looking as fast as I can, man.
Well,
It's
the
gotta
moon's got to
be-
be.
it's
I mean,
got-
we're going into that new moon now, so
We got a new moon right now. It's 3% full. We get to the calendar. So we're looking on Saturday.
It's gonna be slack.
28% full to one quarter moon rising,
Yeah.
getting larger.
That's why.
So
it's gonna
Saturday
be-
should be a good day. I mean, a quarter moon, really. Now it's
Maybe.
half moon, right?
Yeah, it's not that strong. But whatever. You got to go when you can go.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I think that maybe in that narrow area in Joe Bay and Joe River, maybe because it's narrower, you get some more current. I don't know.
I've always found a pretty good current in Joe River, but as you get on up, or on west to where it makes the bend, in that area, you get pretty good current. But
Yeah.
my experience with that South Joe Cheeky that I was talking about, I've seen reds and snook caught there. Most of the time I've been there, I've seen nothing caught there. It's an on and off thing, and it's probably got to do, Henry, with what you're talking about, the moon phase, and whatnot, because it's a hard bottom in that area. I mean, it's like more like the Oyster Bay area. It's hard shell. You can't stick your push pole down very easily in that
Right.
little lagoon around South Joe Cheeky.
Well, it was just impressive. I just, when Carlos and I were fishing those cuts, and then I would look back and I'd see the water ripping right along that shoreline where it was, and I go, Carlos, let's go over here. And we just loaded up on a lot of small ones, but they're fun.
You want to look at the map? You want me to pull up the map?
If you want to.
Well, I don't know. I mean, if we're going to fish Oyster Bay, we might as well talk about that too,
Yeah.
right?
You might have to run down there to
Here's
get there.
Whitewater. Here's the Joe River. You guys see it?
Yep.
Okay. And here's Mud Bay. And then we're into Oyster Bay here. If you go up the Joe River, if you come in off of Whitewater, you're coming up here on the markers. See the
Go
channel
on. You see it where it narrows?
up in
I
here?
can't see. Can you zoom it in?
Yeah. That's the north end. There's
Yeah,
also some flats and in these areas in here.
exactly. And when it starts, well, you see it starting to narrow farther.
All right, go back.
No,
Down in here.
Well, there too, but farther. I think it was farther right where that bay was. That bay is right there,
In there.
and in that area, a little bit farther down. Yeah, right, Carlos.
Yep. I think right there where you're putting your mouse, right there, the mouth of those, basically around that island. Right. Yep. A little bit more.
Right,
towards
that's where you
Joe.
got
Yeah.
your keeper.
Yeah, like right there, right? The mouth there where it meets the Joe River.
And what's the depth on that, Herman? Is that 2 feet, 3 feet?
3 to 5 feet in that area,
Okay.
7 on this side.
Yeah.
And,
I think-
just keep on heading west and where it gets narrower too. Might
Yeah,
be a
well,
good
that's all
spot.
up in this area, and you got two branches up here too.
Exactly.
Right.
Let's
But
talk a
Herman,
little bit.
didn't that Tim Case fish those bays?
Tim Case never told us. The only thing he told us is he fished the where the chickie is
Right.
over here. No, not where'd it go?
What?
Chickie's down here somewhere. Tarpon Creek. Yeah, the chickie's in here.
But supposedly he would fish these bays up there and go across them. And
Yeah, well, this is like Hell's Bay up in here. All these areas, they're very shallow and tons of mangroves and stuff like that.
We went out a lot up in those little bays and kind of cut all through those, and it's real shallow in some spots and it's deeper, and it's kind of interesting and it looks really fishy. There wasn't really anything happening, at least last Saturday.
Okay.
We spent most of the day in those little bays. It was beautiful, but it was
I
It
felt
wasn't-
the same thing. I've gone in there with my brother last year, and I was like, man, this has got to be loaded with fish. It looked awesome, and we didn't catch anything in there. Nothing. All
I've
the
always
little
just heard that the Joe River is kind of a dead zone. So
Yeah, but these areas off the side here, I've had luck in them.
Yeah.
And Tim Case, like I said, he fished in here somewhere. The only place he'd tell you was around the Cheeky, but I think he's up in these flats up in here because again, it's skinny. If you got water in there, you can cast all those mangroves around those mangroves. And David Foss and I did one time. We were both catching snook. But
it might be that tide. It might have just been you had a strong push of water that day.
yeah, well, this Saturday's going to be a weak push. That's going to let me talk about Oyster to get you guys to talk about it. I don't know if you've ever fished in there. Again, here's a channel here. Goes out the Little Shark River. See the markers? And this is whitewater over here. There's this island right here, and it's actually got an oyster bar off of it. And I've actually caught redfish in there, not a ton of them, but I mean, fished in there, all these points and islands over here, canals in there. You could target those. There's the Cheeky, right, Henry?
Yeah.
The Cheeky's up here. It's not marked on this map, but the Cheeky's in here, right in this area. And this pass through is a good one. And these creeks again, if the current's low, the trout, they'll lay down there staring up at the bank, waiting for something to fall out of the mangroves. So if you throw something over the mangrove and pull it out away from the shoreline, that's pretty attractive. And then again, the last thing is I've seen the guides, they're lined up in here, north of these markers over here with this incoming tide. And this is where they were staked out for tarpon. With the cold front we've had this last weekend, the tarpon may still be in there. But, and it's out of the wind, right? Ian, you that's the way you drove, right?
yeah, we kind of cut through that Oyster Bay. We got a couple spots in that Oyster Bay that we fished for years. And
Yeah.
if you look at the map, it's kind of
Hang
cool.
on, let
There's
me get
one
back-
that we
wait,
call.
wait.
Yeah.
Let me get back to it.
A lot of those markers, Herman, you probably know, Bill Hogue was commenting about it. They've never put a lot of those inner markers in the middle of Whitewater Bay back yet since the last hurricane.
No.
And it makes it a little difficult,
Well, even when they were in there, they were still out of sight range. You had to go in faith on the angle, and then you could pick it up a couple of miles away from it.
yeah.
But Ian, talk to me again about Oyster Bay.
So we've got a spot. I've fished a lot with a guy named Eric Teedig from Pine Island Nursery. And
Yeah.
over there in Oyster Bay, let's see if you kind of keep zooming in a little bit there, kind of on that south side, there is a spot in there that we've named the can opener. And it's right there. All right. So if you put your mouse right in the center and kind of go, it looks a little bit over to the right a little bit.
Yeah.
Right there. You had it right on it. And
Yeah.
it looks kind of like a can opener.
Yeah.
And we always called the spot the can opener. And that would hold fish. And actually my son Aiden, about 2 weeks ago, we caught a flounder in that spot.
Awesome.
Wow.
Not a big one. It was about 11 inches.
Yeah.
And so that spot holds some interesting potential for, usually it's a lot of trout,
Yeah.
but you'll get an oddity or two in there, like a flounder, believe it or not. That was kind of cool.
I used to drift
Yeah.
these creeks here and catch snapper, you know, drifting down those creeks with the tide.
Yeah, pretty cool. Never seen a flounder before like that.
Walter, you used
Big
to fish,
flounder?
Not big, 11 inches or so.
you
Okay.
used to fish flamingo a lot with your dad. You fished in this area, haven't you?
Yeah, I fished Oyster Bay area. That was always the best.
Yeah.
Just opposite, just south of marker 51, we had a big hole there and always caught our limit of snook and redfish there.
Okay.
48. I don't know.
50,
It's
51, 51.
Yeah, I don't think they have it on the map. There's
Now,
40.
it was probably one that was blown down.
Yeah, it's up in here.
We would hit 51, make a left and go south, and it was just opposite one of the major cuts that went up to the west. And there's a big hole in there, and we always caught fish there.
Interesting. So you guys want to do it Saturday?
Yeah, we're going Saturday for sure.